my PhD student Abhishek. So, like, I guess this slide does not need any introduction to the learned audience here. So online platforms have become like ubiquitous, like starting from those where we do shopping, to those where we book our travel, to those where we book our car, and to those where we do the daily entertainment quota. So all these are like examples of online platforms, and on majority of these platforms we observe recommendation systems of some form or the other. So these recommendation systems have various objectives. In a nutshell, they try to nudge users to make certain choices. They try to increase the user satisfaction, as well as at the same time, they try to bring revenue back to these online platforms. So these are, in a nutshell, some of the like broad goals of these recommendation systems. So, but like if we try to think a little bit more carefully, uh, something that like intrigues us is that, do we know how we are getting recommended? So this is a question that kind of intrigued us and has intrigued many others in the bias and fairness community in general. And it turns out that probably no. So the algorithmic details are in most cases proprietary to these online companies, and therefore these are in most cases unknown. So even the user item interactions are unknown, they are hidden. So it's extremely difficult to reverse engineer the algorithms, even if you hope to do so. So issue is that like there has been a lot of concerns in the past that some of these systems end up into bringing inadvertent consequences. So, and we will see in a moment what these means. But before that, so uh, to a new area of machine learning has like emerged in the last few years, which is like based on this idea of auditing systems. So you have an online system or a software system, and you try to audit this system in some way, and to find out some of the like inner workings of the system, try to make a guess of some of the inner workings of the system by means of certain types of auditing principles. So this algorithmic auditing has actually become very, very popular, with some of the early studies done on facial recognition systems by Timnit Gebru and her team. So in this talk, what I'll be talking about is like related to perhaps almost all of us, especially during this pandemic situation. It's about bias in sponsored recommendations, and how we can quantify such biases in terms of or in the framework of a special type of network that we construct, which we call the related item network. And for short, I'll be using the term RIN throughout the rest of the presentation. So these are related item networks, and we will define it in the course of the presentation. So in search of these inadvertent consequences, we took up like one of the like very well-known online e-commerce platform, the Amazon.in, and we tried to look into if there could be some potential biases that are hidden to the plain eye, and which could be like revealed by the deeper analysis of the RINs. So this work was presented in Fact 2021 this year, and it is predominantly about the Amazon system and its interaction with the different stakeholders on this system. So I guess again, Amazon does not need an introduction. Like it's a huge company. It's a it's a billion-dollar space. Like there are a lot of categories in which Amazon sells products or like facilitates other sellers to sell products. And there are around 200 million unique visitors per month. So this is a statistics taken from 2019, and this I think has only grown over the last 3 years or so. And what is pretty interesting is that like around 2.2 million active sellers are listed in the Amazon platform to be selling different products. So the question that comes up like to our mind, and I think like that is where all these recommendation systems, etc., like find their utility, is how do customers browse through this like huge number of items that are present on this platform. So typically this is done by information filtering systems that come under the banner of recommendation systems. And the two major information filtering systems that we kind of are interested are the search system, like as you see here in this particular example. Let me get the pointer on. So as you see some examples here, so if you search with the keyword battery, you get some suggestions for the battery. And here you observe certain nuanced factors. So one is you see that some of these items are marked as sponsored. So this is what we call the sponsored search results, whereas the others are here because like probably the users viewed it in a related search somewhere, okay, earlier in some earlier sessions. So that's why these are like popping up here, and these are typically termed as organic results. Similarly, the other form of information filtering are the recommendation systems. So again, you have two sets of results that are shown by the Amazon platform. One are the sponsored products, whereas the other are the organic products. So the sponsored products are shown as a group of sponsored recommendations, whereas the organic products are shown as a group of organic recommendations. And you get to see both of them when you land up to the product page of a certain specific product. So in this talk, I'll be mostly dealing with the recommendation system, whereas we have also some recent works on search system, but it's still under review, and so it's like partially matured. So I thought that we concentrate on the one that is like more mature. So as I already pointed out, the goal of any traditional recommendation system has been to increase customer satisfaction, increase the dwell time of the customer on the marketplace. But the question is that all? Are customers the only stakeholder of this marketplace? So turns out that the answer is no. And so here comes the idea of a two-sided recommendation platform. So if you had noted, I pointed out earlier that there were like around 2.2 million. I think it's much larger now. It's close to 4 million probably sellers who are listing their products on this platform. So there is a huge chunk of seller also present on this platform. So it's no longer a single-sided business. So it's a multi-sided thing, and therefore this new idea of multi-sided fairness, which deals with not only preserving the customer satisfaction, but also maintaining like exposure to the sellers, proper exposure, or quote unquote fair exposure to the sellers or producers, should be ensured under the premise of multi-sided fairness. But again, like, is this all? So it turns out to be that this is also not the, the end. So we are still missing something. And it's about the platform itself, the marketplace or the platform, that is Amazon itself. So, and it becomes important because Amazon itself has started selling its own product on its own platform. So basically, Amazon had certain products which are labeled as private label products, like Amazon Basin, brand Solimo. So these are private label products which are sold by Amazon and are also produced by Amazon inventory itself. So in addition, Amazon also have some affiliate sellers, like they have some contracts with certain sellers, like through this affiliate program. And there are at least two like big affiliates that we know of, the Cloudtel and the Appareo, which are like subsidiaries of Amazon. So this actually is the kind of the major source of the problem. So Amazon seems to be in direct competition with the third party manufacturing brands on its own platform. So that is where we get the name of our paper, if you have noted. So we call the umpire to be also the player. So this has been taken from one of the famous quotes by Elizabeth Warren, where she states that an umpire could not be a player, and this was like meant for all the top internet companies, including Amazon. So before we like delve into the modeling framework, let us try to get a brief understanding of the overall structure of the Amazon marketplace, so that it allows us to understand like the limitations of this particular work. So you have a marketplace, and there are stakeholders like the sellers, the customers, as well as the products. Now, under each of these categories, there can be subdivisions. So the sellers could be Amazon affiliates, they could be fulfilled by Amazon, or they could be fulfilled by the merchant themselves. So these are the three different types of sellers. Then on the customer end, there could be two types of customers dominantly. One are the prime customers, the others are the non-prime customers. Whereas at the product space, you have the private label products or the third-party products. So this is the overall dynamics of the platform. And in today's talk, I'll be concentrating on the interaction of the marketplace with its products in the two categories, the private label products as well as the third-party products. So we will have the four quadrants that we will discuss about. There is sponsored private label products, sponsored third-party products, non-sponsored or organic private label products, and organic third-party products. So these are the four quadrants which we will look into in details in the course of this talk. So there has been a lot of allegations against Amazon, with many antitrust subcommittee meetings held in the US as well as in the EU. Similarly, Indian government FDI regulations have been modified in order to constrain Amazon on certain issues related to its promoting and selling on the platform. And there has been a lot of allegations relating to Amazon's products getting unfair advantage. So these are some of the paper cuttings. So, and these are some of the subcommittee citations that I was talking about a while ago. So but most of these concerns are kind of anecdotal, and these are like mostly covered by newspapers without any end-to-end algorithmic auditing of the platform. And this is where like our work tries to bridge the gap. So as I said, we wanted to do a systematic audit And we have these organic recommendations and sponsored recommendations, as well as we have these two types of products, the private label and the third party. So yeah, so that is what we are going to talk about. And we start off with the data collection process. So in order to have a working hypothesis, we need to have some data gathered. So we went on to collect data from certain categories which we thought were important. So basically, some categories which have a good share of private label products from Amazon, as well as it should be a very compact one. So one of the categories that we chose was the backpack category. The other one, so it has this producer or the brand name there. So as you see here, this is an Amazon private label product. And so it also has the fulfillment details, that is how it is being shipped to some place, but we do not take this into consideration in the current work. There is a follow-up work that is coming up where we take into consideration this additional information. The other one is battery. So in fact, this is one of the first Amazon products where Amazon launched its private labels, and it is better known by the name of Amazon Basics. So these are the two categories where we tried to start looking into, and we got the data by crawling the Amazon.in website. And we started with an initial product, and then we did a like snowball sampling to get additional products that came on the recommendation list of these products. And finally, we managed to get around 10,000 plus items in the backpack category and around 5,000 plus items in the battery category. So we collected both the organic as well as the sponsored recommendations, and each of them also had the tag of whether it was private label or third party. So in the backpack category, like we had around 1593 brands, and out of the 10,000 plus products, there were only 161 private label products, mainly Amazon Basics, Amazon Brand Solimo, and Amazon Gear. In the battery category, out of 5,000 plus products, there were only 17 private label products. So, and the Amazon Basics was the most prevalent one among the private label products. So now the framework, which is what is of primary interest, is what we are going to see in the next few slides. So this is the formal definition of the related item network. So let us say we have a bunch of items like A, B, C that you see here, and say in the recommendation list of A, you have items listed as B, C, and D. Similarly, in the recommendation list of B, you have E, C, and F, and so on and so forth. From this, we construct a directed graph, as you see on the right-hand side of this slide. So each particular product is a node in this network, and there is an edge between two products if, as you see here, C appears in the recommendation list of B. Therefore, there is a link from directed link from B to C, indicating that B recommends C. So this is how we construct the related item network. So typically the degree of this network indicates like the total number of recommendations that this particular product is giving to other different products in the product space. So we constructed such RINs for both the sponsored related item networks as well as the organic related item networks. So we did it for both of these too. So we have two different networks therefore. So the sponsored RIN and the organic RIN. And our baseline here is the organic RIN. So we assume that the organic RIN is kind of relatively lesser biased, should be relatively lesser biased than the sponsored RIN. So that was our underlying assumption, and we wanted to test this assumption because the organic RIN is kind of built from the users who view something also view something else. Whereas the sponsored read is like something like where you have advertisements listed by various third-party brands as well as items from Amazon. So, and we tried to quantify the relative bias between the sponsored reads and the organic read. So, this is the formal definition of what I have been talking about through that network visualization. So we tried to evaluate different forms of biases, starting from promotion bias, ranking bias, representation in the core of the network, exposure bias, etc. For the interest of time, I'll not be delving into all of them. I'll just highlight some of the most important forms of biases, and I would invite the audience to take a look into the other forms of biases if they are interested in our paper. So the summary of all these results is that, like, we observe that the products that have spatial relationships with Amazon seem to get an unfair advantage on their platform. That is what we see across all these different bias measures. So it's not like on one measure we see something and on another measure we see something else. It's like an unanimous thing that we observe across all the different measures. So the first form of bias that we look into is what we call the promotion bias. So this is nothing but the simple measure of in degree. So basically what we study is like what is the total in degree of a particular node in the ring for the sponsored recommendation compared to the organic recommendation. So as I said, the in degree here would, that is, the in degree here would indicate the total number of recommendations that this particular product is getting from all other products in the product space. So what we observe that in the sponsored recommendation, more than 90% of the private label product. So whereas for the third party products, not even 50% of them are getting promoted. So recall that the private label products are very, very low in number. However, the number of recommendations that they're enjoying from the rest of the products is like absurdly high. So, and this is not true for the organic recommendation network. Like here, the percentage drops to 15%. So we looked into like the degree distributions, the in degree distributions in the organic RIN and compared it with the sponsored RIN. And what we observed is that although in the organic RIN also the private label products have a slightly higher margin in their in degree compared to the third party products, in the sponsored RIN, it's like a huge margin. So if you see like the difference in the degree distributions in the private label products and the third party products on the sponsored RIN is like absolutely starking. It's absolutely dramatic. So and then we tried to estimate an aggregate of the in degrees, and what we saw is that the average in degree across the organic RIN as well as the sponsored RIN for any product is very similar, whereas for the private label products in the organic RIN it's like roughly 4 times the sponsored RIN, whereas in the the difference in the third party and the private label products in the organic RIN is just 4 times, whereas in the sponsored RIN it's around like 50 times. So this is like a huge margin, and all these results are statistically significant. So this analysis kind of gave us a hope that there is something fishy going on in the Amazon recommendation framework. And we wanted to delve further and do some more interesting network analysis. So what we did was we did a standard core periphery decomposition of the organic RIN as well as the um, sponsored RIN. And we tried to locate the positions of the private label products and compare it with the third party products on both the sponsored RIN as well as the organic RIN. And what we observe is that the private label products are very strategically placed in the sponsored RINs in the Amazon platform. So the startling result here is that the innermost and the second innermost core of the network comprise of 94% of the private label products when we look at the sponsored RIN. However, in the organic RIN, it's only 65%. And the largest chunk is taken by the second and the third shells. Whereas in the sponsored RIN, it's the first and the second shell, which makes up 94% of the private label products. So this is again like showing a strong difference between the way the private label products are treated on the sponsored recommendation list. So yeah, so this is kind of the summary from the core periphery analysis. Then, like as researchers have earlier studied about the extent of exposure of a particular product on a platform, we also wanted to quantify similar notions of exposure using the RIN, using the related item networks for both the sponsored and the organic cases. So we use the standard random surfer model to do this estimation to obtain this exposure. And what we did was something very similar to what would be a random walk on the related item network. So imagine we have recommendations like B, C, D, and E for a particular item A, and you have the corresponding recommendation network on the right hand side. And imagine that there is a random user who has landed up on the page of A, and say we are talking of watching some movie, say some Amazon Prime movie, and the user is on a particular movie A, and then the user makes some choices, watches the movie, finds it good, then it sees that there are some recommendations already being done, chooses some other movie which can be thought of as a random jump from A to B, and so on and so forth. So therefore the observed distribution of the movies would be A comma B. So however, if the user chooses to go away from these recommendations and look for something new, so say for instance Z, so the new observed distribution would be A comma Z, so which is typically the teleportation function. So so in this way, we tried to compute the visit probabilities of the user in this random walk, and we computed the visit probability for the organic recommendation network as well as the sponsored recommendation network. So we call the visit probabilities of the organic recommendation network as the organic exposure, whereas the visit probabilities in the sponsored recommendation network as the sponsored exposure. And then we simply measured the scale distance between these two distributions. So we had a distribution of the exposures in the organic recommendation network and the exposure of distribution of exposures in the sponsored recommendation network, and we tried to compute the KL distance. And what we observe again is that in comparison to the organic exposure, the sponsored exposure is starkly different, is dramatically different. And these are some of the most interesting result that I have put up here. So basically what you see here is that the products are organized, or the brands, or whatever, either the brands themselves or the products in those brands, they are organized based on the amount of exposure that they get. And the red bar shows the exposure in the related item network using the sponsored items, whereas the blue bar shows the items from the organic recommendations, the network formed by the organic recommendations or the organic rain. And what you see immediately is that the Amazon brand gets a huge advantage compared to all the other different brands. So, sorry. So, whatever may be the case, so this kind of a treatment shows that there is some differential going on between the Amazon brand and the other brands. And what we observe is that when we go to the organic recommendation network, actually the exposure reverses. Duracell gets a larger exposure than Amazon in the organic recommendation network, whereas in the sponsored recommendation network, the thing has completely inverted, and um, uh, the exposure that Amazon Basics gets in the battery category is like extremely high compared to the all the other brands. So in fact, the 17 private label products make up like 25% of the total exposure in the sponsored recommendations. So also, on the other hand, like some very well-known brands are extremely underexposed, like Panasonic and Power One and Generic, which are very well-known brands in battery, which are like extremely underexposed. Like around 75% of the very well-known brands we have seen are highly underexposed in the sponsored ring. So this is actually a very alarming situation, because in the sponsored list, people are paying money to get their products more visible. Like all these companies like Duracell, Panasonic, etc., they are paying money to get their products to increase the visibility of their products. However, Amazon, we really don't know whether Amazon is like paying money to itself in order to list their product on the sponsored recommendation list. Like our guess would be, our honest guess would be no. So that means it's like reserving some space for itself, and it is probably charging this additional money from the rest of the advertisers. So it is reserving some space for its own self, and it is getting like it is, so it has to somehow make up for this space that is reserving for itself, and probably it is making up for this space, or the money that equates to this space from the other advertisers. So this is a like an alarming situation. So there are two levels of things that are going on here. One is that Amazon is like inadvertently exposing its own products on the advertisement list, as well as like it is like deviating a lot from the organic recommendation list. Now people might be like asking a question that okay, the sponsored recommendations should be different from the organic recommendations, but the more important thing to like probably question here is that how different should they be? Like should they be like extremely different? And if they are extremely different, then the organic recommendations at some point in time will be affected by the sponsored recommendations, because people would then mostly follow the sponsored recommendations and like kind of like influence highly the organic recommendations, because the organic recommendations are adjudged based on the viewership, And if the viewership gets dominated by the sponsored recommendations, then the organic recommendation will also in turn be dominated by the sponsored recommendation list. So this is something that is kind of pretty alarming, and therefore there needs to be some signs, some kind of thresholding that should go on there. And on top of it, since the algorithms are proprietary, they are not known, it's very difficult to understand what is going on inside. And we can only be kind of observers, see what is the see the outcomes, and from there make some like um, uh, educated guesses. So yeah, so overall what we saw is that Amazon private label brands get extremely overexposed in the sponsored recommendations, like compared to the their organic counterparts. And like these have been some of the concerns which have been raised in the literature earlier, but we were one of the I would say the early ones to show it quantitatively that certain such like inadvertent consequences are observed in the Amazon platform through this framework of related item networks. Yeah, so these are some of the things like which I wanted to share with the learned audience, and at this point I would be happy to take questions. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Animesh, for a very nice talk. So the floor is open for questions. Anyone from the audience? You can either post your question in the form of a chat, or you can go to reactions and raise your hand, and I can unmute you and you can pose your question. Anyone? Yes, Hari, I'll just unmute you. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the really great talk. So I had like two questions. The first thing is like you said like for about like Duracell and Panasonic. Like I understand like Amazon has a very disproportionate representation in the private label, I mean in the sponsored RN. But if this study like was there an assumption saying that the sponsorship amount that other private labels pay to Amazon are the same? Because like if Duracell paid Amazon more, then it would be natural to expect a bias towards Duracell, right? So that is the question.
Very good point. So like our primary like contention here was that for us Duracell as well as Panasonic are third parties. Amazon is the private label, so it's the competition is between so you can think of it like this, the competition is between Amazon and the rest. So you are very correct. There could be certain such situations where probably Duracell is paying more than Panasonic, and therefore Duracell is ranked higher in the list. That is always a point. But then we don't see any reason why Amazon Basics should be placed at the highest point.
Okay, Animesh, there's one more question in the chat. Maybe you can directly read it.
Okay, I can't see the chat box. Maybe I should.
Okay, I'll just read it. This is from Virendra Harshal. Can sponsored products gradually influence organic recommendations to be nearer to it?
Yeah, very, very important question. And that was what I was trying to point out in the toward the end of my presentation. So, so basically, like um, if if you look at it in this way, that users who view certain items also are likely to view certain other items. Now, if you are showing more and more private label products to the user, and the user is clicking on them, then the viewership count for that particular product, for that private label product on which the user is clicking is also increasing. And in turn, if this viewership count is actually like what is governing the organic recommendations, then there is a high chance that the organic recommendation will be influenced by the sponsored recommendations. And interestingly, a survey that was done among like 3,000 regular Amazon buyers in the US, and they were asked to indicate whether they know the difference between sponsored items and organic items. So half of the participants, like around 1,500 of them, said that they do not even realize that there is this difference that exists on the Amazon platform. So which is further alarming.
Okay, Hari has a follow-up question that the problem with antitrust against Amazon is that they have not increased prices even when they have a monopoly. More often than not, Amazon products are cheaper and are hence better to the customer. But this drives away other businesses which aren't as big. Your thoughts on this?
A very good point. So, so basically, although I have talked about Duracell, Panasonic, see, these are also big players, but the problem is with the tail of the distribution. So if you look at the tail of the distribution of this exposure, there are many parties who have their own like delivery mechanisms. So they do not use the Amazon route to deliver. They do not use the Amazon fulfillment services. And these companies are actually, or these small scale sellers are actually crushed by the overall strategy of Amazon. So, so the way it works, maybe I'm not sure. So, so let us not put blind allegations, but it could be possible that Amazon is able to reduce its prices because it's like saving a lot of money in its advertisement. So when it is putting its private label product on the sponsored recommendation list, it does not pay anything. But the space that it reserves for itself, the money that goes in reserving this space is actually extracted from the other big giants who want to place their products on the sponsored item, sponsored recommendation list. And this might be actually compensating the lesser price that they are displaying for a particular product. So they might be earning through the advertisements the money that they are using as a proxy to reduce prices for their products which they display.
So I have a question, related question, that this is only about the advertising part that we are seeing. Does that translate to actual sales? For example, I would think that Duracell is a much more recognized brand than Amazon Basics, and I would think that their sales are also much higher than Amazon Basics.
Excellent question. So this is what is our follow-up work is about. So if you have noted, most of the product when you go to buy, so there is this buy box. So you land on a product page and it shows the product as well as the brand from which you are buying, right? So the seller from whom you are buying. So this is called the buy box algorithm. So again, this is a black box algorithm. And most often what happens is that users do not tend to look into all the different buy box options that appear. And they just add the item which is like shown on the product page, which is typically what we call the owner of the buy box. and they add it to the cart and then go for the checkout. So in majority of the cases, what we have seen, that if the particular product is from an Amazon affiliate seller. So this is like the Cloudtail and the Appareo. So if the buy box winner is like, so if you take all the competitions where the Amazon affiliates take part, like Amazon affiliates could be the Cloudtail and the Appareo companies. So if they take part in a buy box competition, then like in 90 to 95% of the cases, they win the buy box. So, and this is irrespective of the price, the delivery time, etc. So, and like if you do a ranking based on the price or the delivery, so it we observe that if there are, typically what happens is that sellers offering the best prices and the best delivery time are the ones who win the buy box. So typically this is what is the situation. But if there are sellers who have won the buy box in the history, say at rank 4 or rank 5 of price, or rank 4 on, or rank 5 of delivery time, then these are like in 100% cases, these are the Amazon in-house sellers, that is the Amazon affiliates or the Cloudtail and Appareo. So you see in the sales figures also, Amazon is doing certain tricks which seems to be like bringing advantage to them.
So I know you said that what the algorithm that Amazon is using is a proprietary algorithm. So you don't, I mean, it's difficult to have access to it. But you think they're also using some sort of a network theory to arrive at, to bias their dice towards them?
Not very sure, because reverse engineering is very difficult. So basically what I tried to point out in the very beginning, so there is this matrix of users and items. So unless and until one has this, one has access to this matrix, it's very difficult to reverse engineer like what exactly is going on. But then like although I cannot comment on the Amazon platform, there are certain other movie platforms like the Movie Lens, where we had some access to this kind of user item matrix, and we have seen that like yes, some of the graph theoretic techniques like can be utilized to model the recommendation algorithms, as well as to have biased results from those recommendation algorithms. And in fact, certain graph theoretic techniques like digraph realization can be even used to debias some of the biases in those algorithms. Yeah, that's what we have seen, but not in the Amazon platform.
Okay. So any more questions from the audience? So if not, I think it's quite late in the evening, so we can thank Professor Animesh for this wonderful talk and coming at this late hour also. And thank you very much. It would have been nice if you could actually visit us on campus and we could have a more physical interaction.
Yeah, so I keep visiting Ravindra. I kept visiting Ravindran like in the non-pandemic times, and it is always a pleasure to visit IIT Madras. Maybe like there will be future opportunities to visit again. Thank you very
Hopefully,
much.
certainly. I mean, with this center, we hope that it will be a possibility now. I mean, we can host you. Not though Ravindran is also part of this.
Okay,
Anyway, anyway, thank you very much once again,
thanks a lot. Yeah.
and everyone to the audience. So this brings us to the end of today's session, and tomorrow we are starting at 3 o'clock local time, Indian time. So we have 4 sessions. So first session is about for 1.5 hours by Professor Arun Tangirala. That will be again a tutorial session. It will be followed by a half an hour break, and then we'll have Professor Anirban Chakravarti at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6. Again, a 1 hour break, and then in the evening we'll have Professor Sitabra Sinha from 7 o'clock and Professor Udit Bhatia from 8 o'clock. So hope to see you tomorrow once again. And thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Shain.